A Japanese tourist travels alone in the USA and bakes in a subtropical summer heat. Her English is weak, so she relies on the kindness of strangers. But strangers are not always safe. In the town called the Big Easy, life is anything but. When mercy dries up in the heat, those who get lost sometimes never find their way back home. The trip of a lifetime, 2 subtropical states in one go, at the tail end of a hot, sticky summer in DC. Tourists flock to the cool marble monuments and the blast of museum air conditioning. In New Orleans, oak-lined streets and a sweet breeze off the Mississippi spread the joie de vivre the city is known for. 2 towns known for humid summers. New Orleans just beat out Washington for the sun. Over 100 days of pure sunshine annually. These 2 states are the destination of Kanako Oyama, who was born on May 16, 1982. She's a student at Keiretsu Women's University, a private college in Tokyo created to educate women in knowledge and skills and to elevate the position of women in society. Kanako visits Illinois twice as a short-term stay foreign student when she is in junior high and college, and she learns to love to travel. She recently visits London and Italy, but the US draws her back again.
Kanako's parents are always nervous when she travels alone, but she's an adventurous young woman, very independent. She loves to practice her English, meet new people, and try new things.
She leaves for her self-improvement trip to the USA, departing from Tokyo on August 26, 2003, and is booked to return to Japan on September 19.
Kanako enjoys traveling alone, and she keeps a pretty detailed diary of all her movements, and she loves to take pictures on her digital camera.
She arrives in Washington, D.C. via San Francisco to spend the first leg of her trip touring the historical sites of the nation's capital. But Kanako gets harsh stomach pains from eating and isn't feeling well.
It could be that anxiety plays a role in her stomach issues. A multi-city trip is stressful for anyone, especially a young woman who isn't confident with her English.
She makes her way to the Washington hostel in the dark successfully.
The trip starts off on a sour note. She discovers that her shampoo bottle has leaked over all of her other belongings, and she notices some of the other travelers are laughing and having a good time, but she doesn't feel quite confident enough in her English to join them.
She makes a diary entry before she goes to sleep to mark the end of a long, eventful start to her trip. She's up early on August 27th.
She's eager to start the day, and it's totally jam-packed with famous locations.
Because of her weak English, Kanako relies heavily on the kindness of strangers. Kanako finds the residents of Washington friendly and helpful. People rally to help her get oriented several times, and she poses for photographs with some of them. But that doesn't always pay off.
Anyone who's traveled before knows that sometimes the directions you receive from strangers can be hit or miss. It's no different with Kanako. She's really struggling to get her bearings, and she rants a bit about the directions she receives in her journal.
People are so helpful and friendly, she writes in her diary. The joy of traveling is to meet new people, which makes me more mature.
She's exhausted by her first full day of sightseeing and unable to communicate with the people in her hostel. Kanako goes to bed by 7 p.m. By the 29th and 30th, she is feeling more comfortable and energized.
As Kanoko's journey goes on, she begins to appreciate more and more the benefits of solo traveling. She writes in her journal, "Might have been tired if I traveled with a shopping freak friend."
There's a certain level of extra risk in traveling completely on your own. You don't have that support network with you, somebody to watch your back, somebody that you can lean on when you don't understand the language, perhaps.
And on August 31st, she leaves Washington, a place full of small kindness.
She's ready to see New Orleans, but a change in location, of course, brings on new stressors. She struggles, but she's finally able to make arrangements for a reservation at a hostel.
She takes the 2-hour flight to her final destination.
She writes in her diary, "Finally, I'm getting to New Orleans," and draws a heart.
After visiting DC, Kanako decided to try her hand at improving her English by going to New Orleans. She was hoping to meet new people there, gain some experience, photograph some of the local, colorful jazz musicians that New Orleans is famous for. New Orleans is a big tourist destination, famous also for its muggy weather and rich history, being a place where it's below sea level and one of the most haunted places, and has a lot of above ground catacombs.
Kanako arrives in New Orleans on a day where temperatures soar to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. She gets lost, and again, a kind stranger helps her find her hostel.
Well, hostels are forms of accommodation that can be found really all over the world. Quite an extensive network of hostels has been developed, and some are commercial, some are privately owned, some are large, some are small, is everything you can imagine. And they're generally geared towards single travelers or low budget travelers. The idea is that you're not necessarily getting your own private space. You're essentially renting a bed in a room, and you could be sharing that room with multiple other people. You don't know the other people that are going to be in that room with you. And just by very nature of the people that stay there, typically very transient travelers staying for very short periods of time. Not a lot is known about those people.
Kanako checks in the afternoon and takes a bed in the dorm until September 2nd. Right away, she meets a man at the hostel who helps her with her bag. He tells her he wants to extend her stay so he can get to know her better.
When we talk about people staying in a hostel, and you're not going to know necessarily the other people you're sharing the room with, but you may encounter somebody who you may develop a connection with. Maybe somebody stands out in your mind because they have certain characteristics, certain personality. In Kanoko's case, she stood out to somebody. According to her diary, this makes her feel a little uncomfortable, but at the same time, a little flattered that somebody would like her. She's feeling a little lonely at this point.
The Big Easy has a reputation as a party town, mostly well-deserved, but her roommate notices that Kanako doesn't really seem like the party type. She's more quiet, wants to stay in.
I think the goal of people who really enjoy traveling by themselves is to see new parts of the world, obviously, but also to engage with people they wouldn't ordinarily have known. So meeting these new people and having these conversations is a great way to broaden your horizon.
Later, the new friends go to a popular New Orleans ice cream shop and talk. The conversation stops and he stares at her, which she finds confusing.
On the way back to the hostel, they run into a man who she describes in her diary as looking like an alcoholic. Kanako's new friend warns her that she shouldn't trust this man, and she's grateful for the advice because ultimately she knows that she needs to be safe when she travels by herself.
The next day, Kanako embarks on her first full day in New Orleans all by herself. She leaves around 10 a.m. and notes in her diary how she loves the feel of the breeze. But Kanako is not seen at the hostel afterwards. Days later, on September 3rd, Kanako's dorm mate reports to the hostel manager that Kanako Oyama appears to be missing.
The manager immediately contacts police.
But the young Japanese tourist, whose travels have relied on the kindness of strangers, may have already had her luck run out. Kanako Oyama, a young Japanese tourist with a weak grasp of English, is on a sightseeing trip through the USA all by herself. New Orleans offers both scorching heat and strange new acquaintances. When Kanako doesn't return to her hostel dorm for several nights, the hostel manager calls police to report her missing. Kanako's dorm mate reports to police all she knows about Kanako. The two young women travelers meet on August 31st, the day of Kanako's arrival. When the traveler returns to their shared room at 11 p.m. that night, she sees Kanako fast asleep.
When the two women say good morning the next day, Kanako is organizing her belongings as if she's going on a day trip.
But her dorm mate doesn't see her again.
Everyone at the hostel is very concerned about her well-being.
And the police are now on the lookout for Kanako Oyama.
Then, on Thursday, September 4th, at 3:20 p.m., police dispatch receive an anonymous call.
A man has reported seeing the naked body of a dead female in a wooded area, but he won't leave his name because he doesn't want to get involved.
Detectives arrive on the scene. A partially nude female body is found in an Algiers wooded area between the Mississippi riverbank and Levy, 1200 block of Brooklyn Street.
Detectives inspect the scene. The body is partially covered by heavy foliage.
Her upper body is clad in a white and floral print shirt. There's a green shirt under that, and a gray shirt under that. Her jeans are turned inside out and sit at her left leg. Gray and pink sandals sit near her jeans. This is a shocking crime scene, and the detectives can't tell if she's been killed there or whether the body is dumped. They find what appears to be the victim's property scattered around the scene. Amongst other items, there is a media flash card, a homeless shelter business card, a brown purse, a pen, and a diary.
It's an interesting thing when we think about somebody who keeps a journal, because there's no one particular personality type that might do it. One common thing we tend to see is that people don't do it openly necessarily. They don't keep something that says journal on them while they're writing it. They tend to do it in private moments, while they consider things that have happened over the course of a day or a couple of days, and they document that type of thing. So a stranger wouldn't necessarily know that a person has kept a journal and has recorded the events of the day. It could be something essentially that turns out to be a key piece of evidence in a criminal investigation.
The man who is detained explains he approaches the site only because he is curious about the police presence.
Crime scenes often attract crowds of people, some more curious than others. Some are quite vocal in their curiosity and often will ask officers what's going on to try to find some, bit of information. Maybe it's just somebody that lives in the area and wants to know what, a potential holdup might be. Could also be a potential suspect coming back to see what the police have learned. Yeah, police searched his vehicle, but in the absence of any evidence, really all they could do is take his name and have him move on his way. The very fact that it's secluded as it is means that there aren't a lot of people around, so the odds of somebody seeing something happen in that particular area are very slim.
Following the processing of the scene, the body is transported to the coroner's for autopsy. Police suspect this could be the missing Japanese tourist, but the condition of the body makes it impossible to know for certain. They will need a positive ID through forensics.
Police immediately set up a perimeter and they begin canvassing for witnesses.
The body is taken for autopsy.
Advanced decomposition would mean that a body has been there for a period of time. The tissue starts to get soft and break open, and insects will be present. Typically flies are first on the scene. They can smell a dead body within 15 minutes of death. They'll come there, lay eggs, usually on any open wounds or open orifices of the body, so around the eyes, perineum, that kind of thing. The eggs will hatch within 48 hours, and then the maggots that appear when the eggs hatch can actually tell us a lot in order for us to date more specifically how long that body's been sitting there. Other things on the body, like lividity, which is the fluids tending to be drawn downward by gravity, will show us how long a body's been there as well. Bodies tend to get mushy on the underside, and this body was found in a warm and moist environment, which always speeds up decomposition. So this body was well decomposing by the time it was found.
At 6 p.m., detectives receive a call from Crime Stoppers.
A caller suggests that Kanako Oyama may have been picked up in the French Quarter on Bourbon Street when she is lost and requests a ride in exchange for payment. The caller says Kanako could have gone into a gray vehicle known to be used in relation to drug deals. The driver is suggested to be a black male known as Thomas, who is wanted for a municipal attachment and controlled dangerous substance warrant.
Police re-interview the staff at the hostel, and they have more to say. They tell detectives that Kanako wanted to photograph musicians in the French Quarter.
And they know of an individual of interest. A Thomas is known to staff as a trumpet player. The hostel staff allege Thomas is abusive to females and is known to have previously dated an Asian woman who lives at the hostel.
The name Thomas keeps coming up. The subject of the Crime Stoppers call is really the only lead that detectives have at the moment.
Police need leads. They move to track down Thomas and the gray vehicle fast. In the sweltering heat of a New Orleans summer, a young Japanese tourist goes missing. An anonymous caller reports a decomposing body in a wooded area, but he won't leave his name. A tip to Crime Stoppers suggests Kanako gets lost and pays for a ride from a suspected drug dealer named Thomas, who is alleged to have aggression towards women. While police hunt for a killer, the Japanese consulate is contacted to help police make contact with Kanako Oyama's family.
It's the morning of September 5th when the postmortem is conducted on the body of the woman police suspect is Kanako Oyama.
Normally, when a body comes in, that the person has died because of trauma of some kind, we can see bruising or red marks, bloodied surfaces on the skin. But if a body's been sitting in a warm, humid environment for days, that's also been exposed to wildlife and insects, it starts to get a bit more tricky to glean any evidence. The surface features are not the same anymore. You know that when you sit in a tub of water for any length of time, your skin becomes pruny. Well, the same thing happens when a body's been sitting out in a moist environment. Put on top of that the fact that your body fluids tend to congregate towards the lower part of whatever's touching the ground. It gets very macerated and the tissue just starts to degrade, which makes the whole process a lot more difficult during an autopsy.
The forensic pathologist collects oral, vaginal, and anal swabs for analysis. Right and left-handed nail clippings are also collected.
It's still worthwhile to take samples and try to look for DNA or other foreign objects or things that might still be there in the tissue. Tissue like hair and fingernails is a little more substantial and lasts a bit better during the composition process. The reason swabs are taken from under the fingernails and scrapings are taken under the fingernails is we're looking for DNA from the assailant. Often people will put up a fight, a struggle, and scratch their attacker, and that tissue might still be there. Some skin from the attacker might still be under those fingernails, so we always check there. Unfortunately, Kanako's body was so badly decomposed that dental records, dental impressions had to be taken and sent away to confirm her identity.
On September 6, Kanako's family arrives from Japan. They want to be taken to a location where the body is found.
While on the scene, detectives notice a piece of canvas strap underneath a brown baseball cap bearing the New Orleans logo. They hadn't noticed this when the body was first discovered.
Detectives summon the crime lab to come and process the new evidence.
The man police have been hunting for turns himself in on a controlled dangerous substance warrant.
Thomas denies ever being in the presence of Kanako Oyama, and in fact he volunteers a DNA sample so that they can compare it.
He's booked on outstanding warrants. but no DNA evidence links Thomas to Kanako.
And as of now, police are out of leads. But then a woman contacts police with information about a discovery that could break the case wide open.
She recounts how on September 5th, as she heads to her car parked on Canal Street, she's approached by an African-American male with a digital camera around his neck. He appears to be homeless.
The woman recounts an odd exchange. The man had asked her for a cigarette, which she didn't have, so she gave him $5 instead. Then he wanted to take her picture in order to thank her. She tried to refuse, but he insisted, and then he insisted on giving her the camera as well.
She takes the camera home.
But later, when she inspects the camera, she's shocked to find pictures of Kanako Oyama. She's seen all kinds of reports on the news about her being missing.
She describes the suspect, a black male, mid-40s or 50s, scruffy in appearance. He wears no hat, has shaved hair, a dark shirt, and wears pajama pants with a cloud design and carries a dark-colored bag. Despite her detailed description, she's unsure if she can ID the man again.
She turns Kanako's camera over to police.
Detectives study all of Kanako Oyama's photos, from both the camera and the media card found in her purse.
Perhaps there's a clue on this digital camera that will break this case open.
The camera holds normal, tourist-style shots of Kanako, the Algiers ferry and landing, a garbage can at a baseball stadium, the Riverwalk area, Canal Street area, a female cashier at a popular grocery store, and several other unknown people.
From the many images on the media card, there's one that catches attention. It's of Kanako standing with an unidentified white male.
In that photo, she's wearing the same clothes that she dies in.
It's one of the last shots of Kanako.
Detectives make copies of the photos to aid in their search for witnesses and even potentially a suspect.
Police track down the grocery store where the cashier is pictured and interview the security officer who was on duty that night. He tells detectives that on the night of the 4th, a well-known homeless man known as Loop is in possession of a silver camera, and he asks the security officer if he wants to buy it. When the guard refuses, Loop takes a photo of a store cashier and departs. Loop is described as a man in his mid-40s or 50s, wrinkled face, and wearing pajama pants. Detectives hunt for Loop around places he's known to hang out, such as a popular fast food place, but have no luck.
And as of yet, they can find no match for the pictures of the man who was with Kanako on the day she died.
Police secure a search order for all video surveillance footage of the Riverwalk Mall area from September 4th to the 5th, but they find no clues there either. Detectives proceed to Natchez Steamboat Landing and interview the captain about the white male pictured with Kanako, but the captain does not recognize either of them.
They search through photographs of the passengers taken from September 1st through the 4th in the hopes of comparing it to the photo. They're hoping to get an ID of the suspect, but there is nothing.
And just as police are fearing the case may go cold, There is a phone call. Someone turns himself in and claims that he is Kanako Oyama's killer.
The man begins to open up, and the detectives are ready to listen.
A young Japanese tourist is strangled to death in New Orleans and is finally ID'd by dental records flown in from Japan. Despite the heat, detectives doggedly pound the pavement to find the suspect's picture on the victim's digital camera.
And just as the case is about to stall, it's reignited again when detectives are advised that there's somebody ready to confess.
On November 7th, New Orleans detectives are notified that Timothy Joe Henson turns himself into the Bay County Jail in Panama City, Florida.
The man begins to open up, and the detectives are ready to listen.
Henson is also, as it turns out, an unregistered sex offender. Generally, when someone is convicted of a sex crime, they would be ordered to register for the sex offender registry. The registry is a separate entity from your criminal record, and it involves often having a DNA sample taken, a photograph, and fingerprints. It's something that you physically have to go down and have done. If a person who was convicted of one of these crimes didn't go down and register themselves as required, they would be a sex offender but unregistered.
Detectives share information and discover Henson is the same white male in the photograph pictured with Kanako in the French Quarter.
Together, they pose for that infamous photo by an old-fashioned steamboat. The photo was taken by an unknown third party.
Henson tells detectives that he turns himself in because he is overwhelmed by guilt and wants to speak to someone.
It's not completely uncommon to have a person feel the guilt of having committed a crime like this and turn themselves in wanting to assuage that guilt.
Timothy Joe Henson is born November 25, 1959. He was released from prison in Yukon, Oklahoma in 2002 after serving 15 years. He meets her on the Riverwalk on the Algiers side. They go together back across the Mississippi River via the ferry to the East Bank and French Quarter. The two spend time walking around together, talking, and get some food at a popular fast food restaurant. They proceed to a wooded Algiers area. Henson tells detectives that he intends to rape her. Tells the police, "Took the young lady's life and I strangled her to death."
But Henson is in the mood to talk, and he has much more to say.
After he strangles her, he removes her pants, sandals, and underwear.
Then, for whatever reason, he suddenly has a change of heart, and he no longer wants to rape her.
Henson tells police that he hangs around for a while, wondering why he killed her. Then he realizes he has to leave the scene. he opens her purse and goes through it, empties the contents onto the ground, and steals $680.
He mistakenly leaves his brown hat with a New Orleans logo at the crime scene.
Henson then heads to the homeless shelter, where he is registered under the name Leo Pittman. There he changes his clothes and flees his crime on a bus to Florida under the name Jimmy Johnson. Since his move to Florida, Henson resides in a wooded area behind a Florida big box store. After his confession, Timothy Henson is arrested and voluntarily gives buccal swab specimens, also known as buccal smear, a relatively non-invasive way to collect DNA orally.
He waives extradition. He's ready to go back to New Orleans and face the consequences.
And what he tells detectives about the murder of Kanako Oyama is a shocking look into the mind of a killer.
They remind him that he's under arrest for first-degree murder and, of course, of his constitutional rights. That being that anything he says at this point can still be used as evidence.
But the killer, Tim Henson, overwhelmed by guilt for the murder of young Kanako Oyama, is compelled to speak to police and tell them what it's like to be a killer. Detectives warn Henson that what he said could be used in court against him, but Henson wants to talk and explain his actions as best he can.
And what he tells detectives about the murder of Kanako Oyama is a shocking look into the mind of a killer.
Yukon, Oklahoma is one of Oklahoma's safest cities, with a low crime rate and a small town community feel. It's a good place to live.
But it's not a great place for Timothy Joe Henson. He falls through the cracks in a small town and is soon involved with a criminal element.
Henson has children, but he's unable to adequately care for them.
He's got a nasty crystal meth addiction. He commits a horrible crime and he gets locked up for a long time. I think drug addictions to substances like meth and heroin, cocaine, those types of things lead to horrible outcomes for people. They operate autonomously. They don't know what they're doing most of the time. They can act violently for no apparent reason. Often they don't even understand why they acted the way they did.
He is incarcerated in Oklahoma for rape. Upon release from prison in 2002, he hitchhikes in the USA and panhandles in Florida, Texas, Alabama, and New Orleans, Louisiana.
Henson's time in prison didn't help him to straighten his life out at all. In fact, he's a time bomb waiting to go off, and it did when he went for a walk with a kind young woman on a hot New Orleans day.
But the killing of Kanako apparently haunts him. He claims to police that he thinks about her every day.
He remembers how the young Japanese tourist opens up to him in her last few hours. He learns from Kanako that her father is a fireman, and she is self-conscious about her ability to speak English.
She even opens up to him that her parents are worried about her safety while she's abroad.
Apparently, he always intends to rape her. He feels compelled to acts of sexual violence.
Henson refers to himself as a monster, and he tells detectives that from time to time he hears voices.
He states there are only 3 things that could have happened after the incident: that he turned himself in, take his own life, or rape and murder again.
He tries to put Kanako's murder behind him when he flees, but as he predicts, the problems just go with him.
It seems like he has a high chance of reoffending. He mentions speaking to a woman in Panama and being tempted to rape her. However, this time he was able to fight the urge.
He lives in the Florida encampment since committing murder, but he finds he can no longer live with what he's done to Kanako Oyama.
In November of 2003, Henson is booked at the Orleans Parish Central Lockup and is charged with first-degree murder.
The news of Kanako Oyama's murder shocks not only New Orleans, but the news travels worldwide.
This is a city that attracts millions of sightseers every year. People who just want to relax and have a great time. They're not expecting murder.
The New Orleans business community fears another fall in tourism of foreign visitors. This already occurs in 1992, when a young Japanese man heading to a Halloween party shows up at the wrong door and is perceived as a threat and shot and killed. Deputy counsel from Japan, Hitoshi Kawahara, says Kanako Oyama's murder is sure to further tarnish New Orleans' reputation. In 2008, Timothy Joe Henson goes to court and faces charges for murder. Henson is described to the court as a transient from Oklahoma. He admits that he meets the victim near the French Quarter. The two travel across the Mississippi River together.
When Kanoko's body was found, there was a green purse strap tied around her neck. The coroner found that the cause of death was asphyxiation due to this ligature strangulation around her neck. Breathing would have been cut off, causing her to lose consciousness rather quickly, and then if this force around the neck is continued, oxygen supply to her brain will be cut off and she'll be dead in a matter of minutes.
Well, ligature strangulation is essentially the use of some form of rope or strap, some instrument that could be wrapped around the neck and the trachea to prevent the person from breathing and ultimately dying from asphyxia. In this particular case, the ligature item is a green canvas strap with a knot in it that was taken from her own purse. Henson denies sexually assaulting Kanako, but unfortunately the condition of the remains as determined by the Orleans County coroner was such that they couldn't determine one way or another whether a sexual assault took place. It's April of 2008 when Henson pleads guilty to a charge of second-degree murder.
Criminal District Court judge sentences Timothy Joe Henson to life behind bars. A young tourist who wants to travel alone to gain life experience is mercilessly slain on a sweltering New Orleans summer day.
The only consolation here is that a self-proclaimed monster who can't control himself will never hurt another woman again.
Henson tells detectives that he'd rather take his own life than do the time, but it looks like time is exactly what he'll be doing.